Hey, what's up, everybody? Mr. Oldham back here for another wonderfully later-to-be-boring math lesson, Properties of Quadrilaterals. This is one of the other very important lessons in this unit. It's all going to be about memorization and following flowcharts, things like that. Tomorrow you're going to get the flowchart. Today you're going to get exactly what these properties of quadrilaterals look like. To start, just remember that all quadrilaterals are four-sided figures. That's why they are quad. Think of the little, I don't know, the vehicle you ride. I don't know. I don't drive quads. But there you go. There's a terrible drawing of a quad there. 4 wheels, quad. A lot of people have them around here. Think quad, 4 sides, 4 wheels. Quadrilaterals. There's many different kinds. 3 big questions and the order that you want to talk about when figuring out what kind of quadrilateral you have. These are the questions that need to go in your head in this order. First, before you even get to this, you should know that if you're dealing with a polygon, which is any figure with straight lines and it's closed, is a polygon. You know, triangle, quadrilateral, pentagon, octagon, nonagon, decagon, icosahedron. Don't worry about that for a long time. You're going to need to know specifics. So the first thing I know is that if I have a 4-sided figure, I can always say that it is a quadrilateral. Then, once I have identified it as a quadrilateral, I can start thinking of specifics. The first thing I'm going to think of is, are there any pairs of opposite sides that are parallel? And here's the deal with that. The answer might be no. There's 3 answers to that. There's no, in which case it would just be a quadrilateral. It could be 1 pair of parallel sides, or it could be 2 pairs of parallel sides. Now let's stop there and go to the next slide for a second, because this is what I was talking about. So here's level 1. I was trying to make that bigger. 1 second there. There we go. So once I've identified that I have a quadrilateral, I go to what I call level 1. That's this letter B, all right? Because if I have a quadrilateral and it has a set of parallel sides, it's going to be 1 or 2 options. I got an email. I got either trapezoids or parallelograms. So if I have a trapezoid, I have 1 set of parallel lines. They run like railroad tracks. They're 2 lines that will always be the same distance apart. If I draw this line like this, it's always going to go straight. They'll never intersect. Unlike these lines over here, come on, red. And I go like this, and then I go like this, and bam, they cross. That's a collision. That's just an accident waiting to happen. It's not a good thing. So I have 1 set of parallel lines. That means that my shape is going to be a trapezoid. There's many different kinds. A lot of times you guys are used to seeing a trapezoid look like this, but it's not the only kind. This has 1 set of parallel lines. You might also say, Mr. O, what's up with these less than, greater than signs you're drawing on it? Those are universal signs for parallel, okay? And since there's 1 here and 1, I should use my pointer because I'm pointing at it. Since there's 1 here and 1 here, that means these 2 are parallel, all right? In a second, I'll talk about when we add 2. The other thing is, now my phone's ringing. The other thing is, if I've identified something as a trapezoid, I'm done. It doesn't go any further. Eventually, I'll talk about the hierarchy as a family, and I'll refer to the trapezoid as the black sheep uncle, because he's all by himself, all alone, done. Trapezoids are just over there while everybody else is partying on the other side of the room, because they're all parallelograms, and there's many kinds of parallelograms. We're going to discuss those in a moment. Actually, no, let's discuss them now. I like that better. So, if I have 2 sides that are parallel, so here I have 1, and here I have 2. Notice now I'm putting 2 arrows on. That's corresponding. It's saying, all right, these go together, and these go together. And they're parallel because they have the little kind of carrot figure. So I have 2 sides of parallel lines. 2 sets of parallel lines, 2 sets, 2 sets. And this gives me options. This has lots of different family members in it, all right? If I've decided that my figure is a parallelogram, I have to start asking myself the next question. So now I'm going to ask myself, which sides have equal length, if any? Okay? It's not usually the second question I ask. I usually go to right angles next, but whatever. Let's talk about why. Just get rid of this. Let's go back to this, move this over. See, and that's why. Look, I mean, they did it in the book, too. That's what I don't get. Why would they put that question first when they start talking about right angles first? See, look. Forget that. Now you're 3. Now you're 2, because it should be. Because that's what I think. All right, let's go to right angles. So now I'm looking for right angles, 90-degree angles, okay? Because if I have a parallelogram that has right angles, 4 of them, it's a rectangle. Now, you're used to just, kindergarten, seeing the shape like this. It's not a very good one because that line is bent. It shouldn't be. And, it's not like your teacher ever drew the little boxes because, when you're 5, you don't really need them. You want a general idea. But now you do need them. You're in 5th grade. So, rectangles are quadrilaterals because they have, let me get my little pointer again. They have 1, 2, 3, 4 sides. They have 2 sets of parallel lines. 1, 2, and they have the 4 right angles. 1, 2, 3, 4. Because they have all 3 of those properties, you have a rectangle. Don't worry about why there's a square there yet. We'll talk about it in a minute. The last question that I'm going to ask myself is, do the sides have equal lengths? Because if they do, that means they are a quadrilateral, that's a parallelogram, and if they have all same side lengths, it's a rhombus. The plural, meaning more than one rhombus, is rhombi. So, this equals this equals this equals this. And if I were to draw the equal sign, they look like this. Not to be confused with the parallel side signs, which look like these. All right, you can actually have both on there. All right, so notice it doesn't have 90-degree angles. But Mr. Oldenburg, wait a minute, that one does. I know, hold off on a minute because we're going to talk about this. So, the rhombus has all the same lengths. Boom, 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 boom. So to be a rhombus, you have to be a quadrilateral, that's a parallelogram, and have all 4 equal sides. So then I used to tell you that love story between rectangle and rhombus. And one day, rectangle was walking, texting, not looking where he's going. He bumps into this beautiful asymmetrical figure that lands right on her poor vertex. And her name is rhombus. And he helps her up, and he feels terrible, and he invites her to dinner, and she agrees for some reason. And they go, and they have dinner, and it's a lovely dinner, and they find out they like each other very much, and a year later, they're married. And a year after that, they have a child, and that child's name is Square. Total square. So not cool, right? I know. Such a square. And you might say, why? Well, because Square over here, he's a quadrilateral because he has 4 sides. I could prove it. 1, 2, 3, 4. You know what else Square has? Square's a parallelogram because he has 2 sets of parallel lines. He also is a rectangle because he has 4 right angles. And on top of that, Square is a rhombus because he has 4 equal sides. So if you have all those properties mushed together, if you got the best of rectangle, the best of rhombus, you have a perfectly beautiful square. And that's why square is also represented when we showed rectangle, let me get my pointer back, rectangle and rhombus. Because, now check this out, this is important, all squares are rectangles. All squares are rhombi. Not all rectangles are squares, and not all rhombi are squares. Some are, but not all. But all squares are. The other thing, one big pet peeve. I told you the story in class. Ladies and gentlemen, focus down at the bottom for a second. This is not a diamond. I know you went to kindergarten. I know some people teach that that shape is a diamond. It is not a diamond. A diamond is a mineral. It's got a 10 on Mohs hardness scale. It is the hardest mineral on Earth. It is not a geometric figure. That is a rhombus. Please, call it a rhombus. All right. You're also going to need to know your vocab pretty well and be able to talk about this without pictures. Maybe you draw a picture for it to explain it. I don't know. But you do need to know your terms well enough to be able to classify things, just like we classify scientifically. You know, kingdom, phylum. So, they want to know, how is a parallelogram different from a rhombus and similar? So, here I'm going to go parallelogram. What do I know about a parallelogram? Well, I know it's a quadrilateral with two sets of parallel, and yes, that number 11 means parallel sides. That's the truth. I speak no lie. Now, I also have rhombi. Well, I got to think about rhombus. What do I know about rhombus? Well, I know it's a quadrilateral. That's similar, with two sets of parallel sides. That's also similar. Oh, you're doing it out of order. That's cool. And there's something different about a rhombus. A rhombus has, and all four sides are equal in length. Now that's something that a parallelogram doesn't have to be. That's why all rhombi are parallelograms, but not all parallelograms are rhombi. Ooh. All right. How are a square and a rhombus alike? Well, when we looked at the hierarchy, we know that a square has all the attributes of a rhombus. What makes a rhombus a rhombus? It has four equal sides. It has two sets of parallel lines. It's a quadrilateral, right? One thing that square is different for, though, are the right angles. Should have been straight. All right. How is a trapezoid different from a parallelogram? Well, maybe you want a picture. So here's one. Well, there's one set of parallel lines. Parallelogram. Whoop! I just draw a second trapezoid. Oh, here we go. Oh boy, Mr. O. That's why we do these things uncut. Everybody can make silly little mistakes. And a parallelogram has two sets of parallel lines. You can use any words. It's fine. My pictures work. Finally, they want us to classify these as specifically as possible, but use as many names. Guys, I always start with the most general and work to the most specific, because you're always going to go in order. So if you always do it in order, you're never going to screw up. The first thing I realize, I am looking at something that is four sides. So I am looking at a quadrilateral. I see that I have two sets of parallel lines, so it's a parallelogram. I also notice that I have four right angles, so it's a rectangle. Also, I see that I have four equal sides, so it's a rhombus. And because it's a rectangle and a rhombus, I can call this a square. I'm going to put a check mark next to it, or circle it, because that would mean that I have the most specific name. When I look over here, I have four sides. I have a quadrilateral. There are two sets of parallel sides, so I know I have a parallelogram. I see that I have four right angles, so that means it's a rectangle. I do not have equal side lengths, so I have to stop. It can't go any further. So my most specific is a rectangle. Over here, I have four sides. It's a quadrilateral. I have two sets of parallel sides, so it's a parallelogram. I do not have right angles. However, and I measured these before, all sides are equal, so it is a rhombus, but I can't call it a square because it's not a rectangle. So the most specific name is rhombus. And finally, to end this whole video, I see 4 sides. I have a quadrilateral. I see, whoops, wrong sign. I see that I have 2 sets of parallel lines. So this is a parallelogram. None of the sides are equal to all the rest, and there are no right angles. So that is just a parallelogram. Guys, you're going to need to know your vocab. You're going to need to look at these and ask these questions in order. And I promise you, if you know the parts and you go in order of the questions, you will be able to get these all right. Happy studying.